Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the Strategic Planning Done Right series. You're joining me, your host Matt Jones, and Edward Plant. Edward is from Institute for Couples in Business, and as that name alludes to, he helps couples in business. So I know a lot of you guys out there listening are working with your partners, or maybe you're in a family business where you're working with your parent or something like that. So it's a very, very good podcast series, and Edward is certainly qualified to talk on these topics, especially when it comes to strategic planning. Edward served 17 years in the military, so when it comes to strategy, he is certainly well accustomed to that. Now, the first episode was called Beginning with the End in Mind. This episode is called Defining and Planning the Key Areas of Your Business. Guys, this podcast series has been incredible, and I mean, even when I recorded this a couple of months back, I was certainly taking notes like a madman. And hopefully between the time that you have heard this and the time that I've recorded it, I have certainly taken it upon myself to implement some of the things that I've learned. And, well, I mean, I don't know because I'm speaking into the future here, but I can certainly imagine that some of the things in the frameworks that he's left behind were big game changers when I heard them. So I imagine that it certainly will have made a difference by the time that this goes live. Anyway, that's a bit of a time machine episode there. We'll see how that pans out. But guys, please make sure you go listen to the first episode. Please leave us a review in iTunes, and also go and share this with somebody because it is very, 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 very powerful. Anyway, that's all from me. Let's jump right in, enjoy, and look forward to the following episode, which is going to be called Execution Will Trump Any Plan.
Giving tradies and contractors around the globe the tools to run a modern business. You're listening to Toolbox Talks from the Site Shed. Now here's your host, Matt Jones.
Hello and welcome back to Toolbox Talks on the Site Shed podcast. My name is Matt Jones, and you are joining us today for part 2 of the series that we have titled Strategic Planning Done Right. I'm joined by my co-host, Edward Plant from the Institute of Couples in Business. Ed, welcome.
Hi, Matt. Good to be back again.
Ed, so in the first episode, we were talking about beginning with the end in mind. Of course, we put a bit of a spin on this relevant to family-related organizational structures. So that might be you're working with your partner, or perhaps you're working with a family member like your father or something like that. Pretty relevant to the trades. You see that quite a lot. It was a great episode, actually. We spoke about a lot of things, and you gave us a brilliant framework there for the street plan, which was basically a 3-year vision broken down into a 12-month plan, broken down into 3-month goals, and then into weekly actions. For you guys out there that missed that, make sure you go back and check that one out because, as always, we structure these series in a way that the following episodes will lead into the previous. Ed, bit of a background on you. You spent 17 years in the military, so you are a planning wizard. Obviously, now you run the Institute for Couples in Business, which is a brilliant training program that helps businesses achieve their goals. So very more than qualified to speak on this topic, but with your experience, and of course, you're a member of the Facebook community, which is also very valuable. So thank you for being a part of that.
My pleasure.
So, mate, in this episode, we're going to dive into defining and planning the key areas of your business, which of course tie into what we spoke about in the previous episode, which was beginning with the end in mind. Just before, I suppose we had a bit of a chat then about something that we probably should have, or maybe covered off on then, but certainly we can cover off on now, which is when you're talking about laying out that roadmap and that plan, that strategy, who to involve in it, and then how to, I suppose, make that relevant to, the members of the team and so on and so forth. I know I've certainly worked in organizations before where the objective and the goal was about helping the boss buy his next boat, which for me, I could not give a toss. So,
yeah, there's not many people in the world that want to work harder so that somebody else can make more money.
Right.
It's a real hard pitch.
Yeah. So, and that was just, I was amazed, with the amount of, that was the message that was kind of being conveyed at that point. I certainly don't think that would be the case anymore with our company. I think that fell apart pretty quick. It kind of made me resentful in a way. I don't know if that's pretty common or not, or if that's just me being choleric, but yeah, I'm interested to see. I mean, so what's your take on that? I mean, we spoke about it offline, but I'd really like to get just to clear that up for the listeners out there, because we've gone and created these street maps, or these plans, as you call it, for the 3-year goal, the 12-month goal, the 3-month goal, the weekly actions, all that kind of stuff. But then, when you're talking about that on a macro level, of course, effectively, you can't build an empire on your own. So, you need a team to buy into it. And of course, if you want your team to buy into it, then you've got to structure it in a way that they're going to actually want to be a part of it.
Yeah, totally. And we talk about this a lot in our in the book that we've released, the Lead the Ship, and how to get buy-in and motivate A players.
Just quickly on that, Lead the Ship, that's available on Amazon?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so I'll put a link to that as well in the show notes.
Yeah, brilliant. And what we did in the first session was talk about the street plan, and what we really did was look at the vision and the goals. In this session, we're going to have a look at the project and and how to get better clarity on the right projects to make sure you're moving in the right direction. In terms of team, I'll just share how we do it.
Yeah.
It's a pretty good solution, and we do this with a lot of the couples in businesses that we work with who have good teams. I get really clear on our vision, or my wife and I do, and we plan out our vision of where we're going. And the vision in this sense is not just the picture that we want, it's the result that we want to have and the impact. And I know when I've recruited people and I've talked about the impact we want to have, they've bought into it and they love it. And as a result, we take money off the table. So it no longer becomes a discussion about how much am I going to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
They go, I love the impact you guys are going to create throughout the Gold Coast, Queensland, Australia, the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd be honoured to be a part of that.
Yeah.
So we get really clear on that vision.
Just quickly, Ed, when you're talking about that vision, we're talking about the 3-year top left quadrant, right?
A little bit. In our case, it's so yes and no. We're not talking about telling the team that vision specifically, because that vision can be quite personal, and it can be about owning your office space,
right,
owning vehicles, and it's a lot more.
Right.
Like a lot of that is
financially driven.
For Ed, a lot of that is how am I going to get more money to make my family's life amazing?
Right.
And the team won't resonate with that. For our vision in the Institute for Couples in Business, it's we want to be the leading advocacy and support organisation for any couple in business throughout the world, and we want to change their lives so that they have a ripple effect through their community, which makes their lives better, their staff's lives better, and their community's lives better.
Okay,
if we can do that, we'll make the world a better place.
So you and Rebecca have one for yourselves, and then you and the team have one for the team.
We have a Institute for Couples in Business vision, which is more like a traditional company vision statement.
Right.
When we're talking vision in the street plan, we're talking about the end in mind for that, for the business owners.
Mm.
So a bit confusing there with the two uses of vision, but
okay. Then let's dive into how you make that relatable.
Yeah, and then from there, we'll talk about a little bit about the 12-month goals that the business has, and then I'll hand it over to them to come up with their 12-month goals of what they want to achieve inside the business and what they want to achieve because I want to know how I can help them have a better life.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know if our team are happy driving towards things that they really want, both personally and in business, they'll stay with us longer, they'll perform better, and they'll be a great asset.
So what does that framework look like? And I ask you this because I'm going through this recently myself. Like I've never really myself been overly driven by money. Like it's not really a big factor for me, but I know that I like to help people achieve their goals, and I want to be able to use, my business as a way that they can do that. So it's very relevant to where I'm at the moment as well, selfishly.
Yeah. So what's the framework for doing that with the staff?
Well, yeah. I mean, how do you go about, getting that in? Like, how do you lay it out? How do you map it out? What does it look like once it's you've collaborated with them and you've got it in front of you?
Yeah. So we're now moving into a staff support and how we do that on the bigger picture.
Okay.
And we have a thing called a plan on a page. So you're getting a bit of a picture that I like things simple.
Yep.
And if I can do it on a page, I'll do it on a page. And in that plan on a page, we talk about what they want to achieve, what they want their role to be, what jobs they like doing, what jobs they don't like doing, what their strengths are, how they think they're going, what they need to improve. And we do this with all new staff members to get them aligned. And we do it regularly with all our team members as well.
Yeah, right.
And so once we've got that, we've got them bought in to being invested in the direction. We can also tweak it. So we can go like, well, listen, I know you want to work with X type of customers, but that's not on our radar for the next 12 months.
Right.
So we then have a discussion about it. So instead of them thinking that they're going to do something and never happening, we can say, listen, what we need to get done first is this. Are you okay with that?
Mm-hmm.
And then if we switch back to planning now, inside that planning cycle, we need them to be clear on what they're driving to every 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I've done this is when I was a captain, I was sent over to Papua New Guinea to work for 2 years with the Papua New Guinea Defence Force to help their engineering planning and help them do reconstruction inside the country to help them improve their roads, infrastructure, and provide stability. When I was there, I was there with a senior captain and a major. And the senior captain had a few really bad reports by one boss that it pretty much affected his career for the next 5 to 6 years. And the major took me aside and said, hey, Ed, this has happened to Garth. I don't want that to happen to you. So what I want you to do is work out what you want to achieve in the next 12 months, 2 years in your posting, and then I'll recalibrate that, and we'll touch base every 6 months to make sure you're on track. And if you're on track, you'll get the report that will set you up for the rest of your career.
That's leadership.
And I went, that's amazing. But then what I did with that, so I got 2 years of great reports and achieved amazing things. The next job I went into, I sat down with my boss and I said, hey, boss, what do you need from me for me to get this type of report? And we worked it out. And then what happened is I touched base at 6 months and I said, boss, am I on track?
Okay.
And he said yes or no. And over the next 5 years, at the end of the 12 months, I'd have bosses that come in and said, hey, Ed, here's your report. And I go, hey, boss, this isn't what we talked about.
Yeah, right.
And he'd go, well, that's what I think you did. And I said, well, we agreed that if I did all this, you'd give me this report. And at the 6 month mark, I checked in and you said I was on track. So I haven't been given any guidance to say that I needed to change, improve, or do something differently. So I don't think we're really talking the same language here. What are we going to do about it?
Okay. And so what would happen as a result of that?
The bosses they'd be stunned because particularly in the army, like they tell people what to do and people jump.
Yeah.
And I was a subordinate going, hey,
hang on, mate.
This isn't what we did. This isn't what we agreed on.
Yeah.
And they'd go, okay, what are we going to do about this? And I said, well, and we'd work it out.
Okay.
But they didn't have a leg to stand on because I'd communicated with them, I'd positioned them, and I got I deserved the reports I got. So I had done the work, but I also positioned myself to make sure that they delivered on it.
Yeah, right. I like it.
Because and so that's why I do this with businesses now. So instead of your staff member having to lead that, you lead it and position them to be in a spot of power. And the way I look at it is if your staff are delivering you growth and getting you better customers or helping you upsell or whatever it is, then hell, reward them.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And that's part of this process. So in the planning process, we then sit down, they go through their goals, and then we break down their projects that they need to focus on in the next 90 days for them to work on.
I love it. This is great. Okay. So.
And then using the street plan, because after the projects bit, which is the 3 months, there's the weekly actions, which is the 3 weekly actions. I can check in and go, what are your 3 actions this week?
Yeah.
At any stage, any time. And they can tell me, and I'll have a look at them and I'll go, well, that doesn't really feel like a huge movement or something that's going to be valuable to your projects. Why don't we do this as well? And they go, yeah, good, great idea. And they move towards it.
Ed, how do you structure that when you've got team members where their job is effectively to deliver the same product? So it's like, okay, you need to be doing this every week so that we can get this product delivered or this service offered. Like, this is basically your job. You don't need to overcomplicate it much more than that.
Yeah, totally. And for some, you may not need to go into this detail.
Right.
So I'm probably more. So for those guys, there's still things I think that they can improve every week. And I'd be looking at those improvements being the things that they need to work on.
Yeah, okay. Because I know a lot of listeners out there, they'd be like, well, okay, I've got a team of, plumbers and I need them to make sure that they're, obviously their KPIs are showing up to the job on time, making sure they don't get callbacks, like all that kind of shit. Like it's more or less the same sort of thing.
Yeah, totally.
We interrupt this podcast today to talk to you very quickly about Tradie Web Guys content creation program. That program has been designed specifically for trade-based organizations as a way that you guys as trade business owners can start creating content that enables you to engage better with your customers and your potential customers. It will enable you to build trust and build rapport because what you're doing is you're investing in educating them. Biggest problem that we see with our customers today is that they're not regularly updating their websites. And that's a problem because first of all, the search engines are looking for that. And second of all, potential customers are also looking for it. Tradie Web Guys content creation program has been specifically designed to help you get regular, relevant content on your website consistently every month. We know that it's hard when you're out there on the tools, and we know that sometimes you don't always have the time to be able to do these things yourself. So we're taking it off your hands for you. It's a service that we're offering for you guys. We want to make sure that you're getting this done because we know how important it is. Anyway, head across to tradiewebguys.com.au/content, fill in the form, and one of our representatives will come back to you.
So what I'd be looking at is setting a theme for either a quarter or a month and just getting their weekly actions to be around that theme.
Okay.
So, for example, you could identify that you were getting a lot of customer callbacks. So the theme for the month would be customer engagement.
Right.
So what actions do they need to do on a weekly basis that are going to improve and reduce the number of callbacks?
Yeah, okay.
Is it making sure they take their shoes off every time they go into the house? Is it cleaning up all the crap that's fallen down around the toilet? Just having those like real simple things that they focus on.
Are there certain, like we're talking about defining and planning the key areas of your business. So one of the questions that I have to you are, what typically are key areas, and then what are some of the areas that business owners will often think are the key areas, but in reality they're just massive distractions?
Yeah. Okay. So we're talking back up at the business owner level.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm jumping all over the shop here, but
no, that's fine. And I just need to be clear because the answer's a little bit different depending on the level we talk about.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be back at the business owner. We can keep. I mean, it's relevant, I suppose.
It'll probably flow down throughout. If I talk about the business owner in terms of relevance for what are the key areas of their business, we've got 9 key pillars that we focus on working with every business.
Okay,
and they are based under the subheadings of planning, balance, and leadership.
Okay.
So inside those, I think everybody can work hard and achieve more, but who wants to sign up for a 80-hour week every week for the next 10 years? So how do we get that? How do we create the plan to deliver lifestyle and balance and lead to change in the business? So below those, there's a heap of different pillars. So one of them is, I'll just go off the top of my head what jumps to me. Systems is one. So how are you going to introduce systems? And systems stand for save yourself time, energy, and money.
I can't believe I've never heard that.
Yeah. Every time you introduce a system, it'll save yourself time, energy, and money.
Yeah, I love it.
Which is awesome. Fundamentally, I'm a bit of a lazy person. So if I can do it the easy way, I'm all in for that. So systems is one. The other one is finding time. So I reckon all of the tradies that are listening are crazy busy.
Yeah, they are.
They can keep doing it that way, or they can work out how to change it and do it differently.
And tying into that, without interrupting you too much, sorry, but like a lot of the complaints that they have are around, well, yeah, I'm busy because I can't find people to do the job right. Like, everyone's idiots. Like, there's no one out there that's good at doing what they do. Like, that's that constant arguing. But I think it sort of ties into what you said, earlier, where. And I've heard this from a number of people that I've had on the show as well that do it very well. Like, we're talking about retaining staff and building a great team. Like, if you can associate that to where they want to go, then, give them instead of, a job, offer them a career path, as cliche as that sounds. That really can be the defining difference between, building a team of people that are committed to the end goal and building a team of pork chops.
Absolutely. And it's critical at the recruitment phase and at the staff transformation phase. So if you're recruiting, there's a blueprint for how to do it. If you've got staff already, you need to take them under a transformation to get them from however they're doing it today to get them being A players and being better. And some staff won't like that.
Right.
And some staff will leave on that journey.
Yeah.
But they're better off out of your boat or out of your ship than in it, because they're just going to drag it down.
I know one of my clients, colleagues, listens to the podcast, Roscoe, he had a similar situation he had a really, really, really good builder that was part of his team, but the builder just did not want to fall into that team culture, that then the direction they were heading, he just didn't want to buy in. So he had to make a pretty tough decision in letting that guy go, even though he's extremely good at what he did. He said from a organisational perspective, it was kind of becoming cancerous.
Yeah, absolutely. And they are. And particularly high performers that are amazing at what they can do inside their area of expertise.
Yeah.
They're hard to let go because they're so good at what they do.
Yeah.
But the toxic influence across the team far outweighs one person being amazing.
It's actually not that uncommon to hear that story in the trades. Like you get guys that have, I've been a carpenter for 25 years and, I'm the duck's nuts, whatever. I don't really care about the rest of the team. I'll do my own thing. But it's not an uncommon scenario, to be honest.
Yeah, totally. And we've worked with lawyers that have had it across the board.
Right.
And so when we talk about, you touched on getting people into the business on it, and you say, I don't have the scenario of I don't have any time because I can't find the person to do the job.
Right.
I reckon it's a real challenge at this level because there's so many. It's hard to find the right person, but people use it as an excuse not to find the right person.
Right.
And the example that comes to mind is we've got an amazing client that when we started working with them, they were $30,000 a month electrical company.
Yeah.
It was in the time when the mines were stealing tradies to go and do stuff and paying them huge amounts of money.
Right.
So it was really tough to get good employees. But we took them on a recruitment journey that at the end of it, when the guy got the job offer, the electrician, he said, I've never been through a process up to this point that is like this. And I've worked for big companies throughout Australia and I've never been taken and looked after this well and understood it and been kept across it. Yeah. And at the moment, I can see where you guys are going and I want to be part of that. And he took a pay cut to do that job.
You're the third guest on the show that's said that, and it's so powerful because so many of the clients and community members out there, they have that issue of where how do we overcome this battle? We've put all this money into training this staff. Someone comes along and offers them an extra few bucks an hour, and they jump ship. And you're the third person that's effectively said, well, if you can, offer them a career path and lay out a future for them and, show them where they could potentially be if they stay with you, all that kind of stuff, that will then, that will eliminate that issue of somebody going, well, I can get extra $3 an hour over here, so I'll see you later. So I think it's very powerful.
Yeah, totally. And money's only a deciding factor for your staff if you make it a deciding factor.
Yeah.
And so everybody positions it. It talks about money.
Yeah.
Get it off the table. Who cares about $3 an hour?
Exactly, yeah.
And at the end of the day, if they're worth it, pay them that.
Yeah.
But if they're not, don't.
Yeah.
And I mean, this company that I'm talking about now, the electricians, they're now turning over $300,000 a month.
Oh, yeah.
So they've had phenomenal growth.
Slight improvement.
And this guy's invested in it and he's seeing the rewards for it. And he's got a team that he runs and he's loving it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And particularly for those businesses that aren't at we're not a big business. We're turning over $20,000 a month. How do we get people that a big business can get? And it's having that plan for it.
So when I asked you before, what are some of the key areas that typically would be noise or distraction, it sounds to me like money is one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. And so inside the other areas of the 9 key areas, one of them is team. And so how you train, retain, and recruit amazing team players.
Yeah.
And if you don't get that part of the puzzle right, you'll struggle and you'll lose time and you'll be caught. The part of that, and it's probably more of a mindset rather than a pillar, it's around the business. And if you look at people's goals are to make $100,000 for me or $300,000 for the business or whatever that number is, if that's the goal that you're training the staff to go get, you're making it about money.
Right.
Like if they're the KPIs and the agenda that you're putting on the table, then they're the KPIs and agenda that they're going to play the game by.
Well, that's interesting, isn't it? Because when you talk about KPIs, actually, and this is a bit of a segue, but let's definitely dive into this because when you're talking about setting KPIs, what should that look like if it's not financially driven?
And I don't think I'm not saying it shouldn't be financially driven. There should definitely be financial KPIs in there.
Yeah.
Because the bottom line is business is about money. You're all there to make money.
Yeah.
And to grow. And the more money the business makes, the better resources the guys have, the better jobs they get, the better their life is.
Right.
So they need to be in there, but they need to be balanced across the cross-section of different KPIs.
Because I see very often there's a fundamental, and this is across the board, to be honest, and certainly not vertical specific or industry specific, but I see there's a fundamental disconnect between, when at that goal setting and KPI stage where people, they're not tracking the right things. And it's one of the things I'm sure we're going to dive into this, when we talk a little bit about execution in the next episode, but tracking the right metrics, which to a lot of people might not look like what they should be. Like those key metrics should not necessarily be, turnover, how much you upsold on the job, like that kind of thing. It should be more about the granular things that can lead into that end result. So, how many leads are you getting? What's your conversion rate look like on those leads? How can you improve? Have you improved your conversion rate? Like those sort of things.
Totally. And then for team, it's really hard to get clear KPIs, and a lot of businesses struggle with it because it is easy to go, how many jobs did you do this week?
Right.
But it's also, what are some of the important things? You want customers to give amazing feedback. So the feedback could be a KPI. The time on job, like did you do it in the allocated time?
Yeah, okay.
The follow-up work, did you put it all into the online system so that we don't have to chase you for paperwork?
Yeah, right.
So KPIs that make
feedback,
their performance better and your life easier.
Yeah. I know one of my colleagues, he does a really good job of like making his technician like just super accountable to to all the projects they go to. So, if they go and clear a block drain at that job, it's up to him to make sure that he's building the right relationship with the client. It's up to him to make sure that, he's getting excellent feedback from the customer which is followed up on by the manager. If there's any callbacks, that technician always goes back and they always go back to the job and, fix it themselves. Like he really makes them accountable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think people thrive under a responsibility.
Right. And, it's funny. Well, I don't know if it's funny. It's apparent for sure, especially in the emergency service areas, like say emergency plumbers or emergency electricians or whatever it might be. There seems to be, and I don't know if it's right or wrong. I mean, obviously it works from a business point of view, but I question how well it works from like a team morale or, like the company dynamic where you've got certain technicians which will go out to the call out and they will sell the job and they're basically their job is to upsell and squeeze as much money out of the client as possible. And then they basically leave and someone comes in and does the job. And I don't know about that. Like it obviously works from a turnover perspective, but I've just never really resonated well with me from a company morale point of view.
In terms of?
Well, I just feel like, somebody's gone out there and they've sold this job because effectively I couldn't do it. And I'm no good at doing that sort of thing. So I'll just go out there and, and then they, that person will get commissions on that sale and what they upsell and all that kind of stuff. And I don't know. I feel like there's a bit of there's a lot of grey there.
Yeah. And I think, and a lot of problems come from it. And it sounds like the problems stem in this example from guys that turn up just to do the work aren't being valued for the work they're doing.
Well, maybe they are being. I mean, maybe that's, we value you because you're so good at doing the job. But effectively, we're saying you suck at selling it, so we're not even going to give you a crack at it.
Yeah, and for some people though, they don't want to crack at it.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I guess
they hate it.
Yep.
They'd prefer get in and do it. Some people want it. What I think problems guys run into is the sales guys thinking that they're amazing because they're getting all this work.
Yes.
And they become rock stars, and their commission basis means that they earn a lot more.
Yep.
And they get this sort of, I'm an amazing asset to the business complex.
I've seen that so many times.
And that's really toxic. And not good for the whole team, but it also isn't good from the sales rep. And the salespeople have, like, natural salespeople are really high ego, talk the talk, and think they're really good, which is really important in a salesperson, but it can be a real negative impact on the team.
Yeah, interesting. So in the last episode, you left us with an awesome framework for, like it would be, would you call it the street map?
Street plan, yep.
Have you got anything that you can, like in closing off this episode, that you can leave with the listeners in terms of defining, planning the key areas of the business?
Yeah, and we've started to touch on some of the 9 that we use as our guide of the 9 key areas that we need businesses to get right in their growth path.
Yep.
What I would recommend at this stage in the street plan, we've looked at vision and goals.
Yep.
And really getting your projects right is important. And so what I would do is ask yourself the question of, what are all the projects or pillars that I need to achieve that need to be really strong for me to achieve this 12-month goal?
Can I just on that, Ed, we're not talking about, just for the listeners out there, we're not talking about an actual, like, physical project, like building this home as a project. We're talking about, okay.
So if we look at it as your business is a building, and your goal is the roof.
Right.
So what we need to make sure that roof is strong and you achieve the goal, it needs pillars holding up the roof.
Yep.
And those pillars need to be really strong.
Yeah.
So those pillars are going to make your goal happen. And I'd do a brain jump on what are all of those. So they could be marketing, they could be systemization, they could be admin, they could be recruitment, they could be team performance, they could be operational delivery, whatever they are. And they become projects or pillars inside your goals that you need to achieve over the next 12 months.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then from those projects, you want to create... and then inside each of those projects, you really want to create another plan on how you're going to achieve those projects.
Mm-hmm.
And then what we do is we go, okay, in this quarter, in this 90-day block, I'm going to choose 3 projects to work on.
Yeah.
To move me further ahead. Now, there will be some that are happening in the background and need to be chipped away at and are continually worked on. But what we're talking about is your focus on 3 projects.
Yeah.
Now, the reason for this is in the Army, we work on, you can only ever command 3 to 5 things at a time. As soon as it becomes more than 5, it becomes too complex and you lose control. And in the Army, people die.
Right.
So you don't do that. So your span of command is only ever 3 to 5 things. And for your business, that's where you need to be. You need to be doing those, you need to have focus on 3 to 5.
Is complexity the issue, or is it really dilution?
Explain that a little bit more.
Well, I mean, like, would you say adding more tasks makes it more complex, or would you say it just means that the critical ones are being diluted and you're not focusing enough attention on them?
It's probably a bit of both.
Okay.
I think humans have an awesome ability to overcomplicate things,
yeah,
which makes things harder. And we can overanalyze things. And
my wife's shaking her head at me.
She's saying you do.
Yeah, she's like, you're a dickhead, mate.
Oh, right. And so yes, we can overcomplicate them, but also by overcomplicating them, we do mean that there's too many things to do, and as a result, our impact is less.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's simple maths. If you look at it, if you've got 3 things to do, you can do them really well. If you've got 20 things to do, you're going to spend 1/20th of your time on each, which means you're not going to be able to do it as well.
Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. All right, let's wrap this one up. Thank you again for your time. That was the second episode of the Strategic Planning Done Right series. That one was called Defining and Planning the Key Areas of Your Business. That was stemming on from the first episode, which was Beginning with the End in Mind. And you've been listening to myself, Matt Jones, and Edward Plant from the Institute of Couples in Business. You can get hold of Edward at www.instituteforcouplesinbusiness.com. There'll be links to that in the show notes. Ed's also got a closed Facebook community, which I will link to. Ed, thanks for your time once again. We're going to come back next week and we're going to talk a little bit about execution and how that will trump any plan.
I love the execution bit, so looking forward to that conversation.
Brilliant. All right, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to another episode of Toolbox Talks. If you're liking what you hear, then you can head across to thesiteshed.com where you can join our community by signing up to our Toolbox Talks. You'll get sent a weekly notification, which is basically a highlight of everything that we've spoken about during that week, along with any other industry news that may be relevant or specific to the trades. If you're enjoying the show, you can head across to iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, where you can leave us a review. That would be fantastic, and all the reviews get read out in the show. Likewise, if you have any friends or colleagues that you think would benefit from the show and the episodes that we create, then please go ahead and share it with them.